in itself is helpful to know. Oh, it wasn't just me, I failed at CBT. Maybe CBT wasn't what was needed at that time. Again, it's saying, hang on, it'll get better. It will get better. That's very powerful. What I hear in the support groups, where people turn up and they say, very often we hear, do you know, I can't talk about this at home. I can't talk about this with my loved ones or my family or even my friends. But it's okay to say it here.
Now then, welcome to Reconnect, the podcast for people who want to heal and grow from life's tough times. I'm Joe Tudor, a mental health keynote speaker and the founder of the Reconnect Club. Today, I'm chatting with Rosa Trelfa, a counsellor, group facilitator and former director of the national charity PeerTalk. We'll be talking about the incredible power of groups, how they can help us heal, and how you can find one that works for you. Right, here's Rosa. So many people out there are busy all the time, be it work, social stuff, family, but still feeling deeply lonely and in pain. How might these people benefit from going to a support group like PeerTalk?
I guess my immediate response to that, Joe, would be that in the support group, that person might find somebody else that's going through something similar. And even if they're not, they might find somebody else in that group or a few people in that group who at least get it and who understand. So for me, and it's what I hear in the support groups where people turn up and they say, very often we hear, do you know, I can't talk about this at home. I can't talk about this with my loved ones or my family or even my friends. But it's okay to say it here. So for me, it's a safe space. That's what I get from the attendees. It's somewhere neutral, where there isn't particularly an emotional tie with everybody else in the room as there would be with your husband or your partner. So it's a safe space where I can say it as it is, and it's not going to be dismissed or thrown back at me. And actually, some people might even get it and understand, which kind of validates, oh my God, it's not just me. So tons of benefits, Joe. But for me, that's the biggest one, making that connection, safe space, somebody gets it. Wow, I'm not on my own.
The validation point's really interesting because I think validation's got a bit of a bad PR, if that's the right thing to say, where we think of validation and we often think of likes on Instagram or that external validation that can sometimes seem shallow. But I completely get what you've just said, because sometimes when another person understands us, we feel validated. It's like, oh wow, what I'm experiencing this is sad. We might get that at a group, whereas it can be harder to find that, say, in the pub or with your football team or at work.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that somebody else connects to your experience matters. Absolutely matters, that somebody else understands. And that's the whole purpose of the group, I guess. It's about mutual support. There's no judgment there as well. That's massive, I feel in the support group. And it's something that we say at the start of every support group. We kind of have a framework. And one of the things that we set out is that we're not here to judge each other. And truly, it is mind-blowing how that happens, that somebody tells their story and, hey, this is my reality. Yeah, that's how it is for you. Yeah. I think the validation's important, don't you? The kind of, somebody gets me.
it almost makes me sad to think that we go through so much of our lives, most of our time spent at work, and it's sad that so many people don't feel understood in their families or with their friends. It just feels like there's something huge that we're missing out, and it sounds like what you've built and what you've grown and been part of at PeerTalk and just support groups in general can offer that.
Yeah, yeah. But then again, the workplace, you've got an agenda there, haven't you? You've got a kind of persona that you have to be, don't you? And there's a fear of, I think, of not functioning as well as you might in the workplace. So of course, you're not going to share that you're a bit nervous about this, or this is worrying you, or I guess you are to a certain degree. But yeah, where are the spaces where you can actually tell it as it is? You're right, Joe. They are rare. They are rare. And often we hear in the support group that I can't speak about this at home because I don't want to burden my family. We hear that a lot, which again, like your expression just then said it, that's sad. But that sense of, I don't want to be a problem to my family. So if I can work through and make sense of my stuff here, or at least start here, then that's got to be a step in the right direction, hasn't it?
I think it has. And I think it's easy to say, just share it with your family if you can. And it's harder than that. And I think one of the reasons it's harder as well is sometimes it's actually just hard to put words to what's going on, and having a space where you can do that, where you can verbalize how you're feeling or find the language, that can be really helpful too. And it might help share it. Because one thing I found that I often see that with my friends, and I've been there before, where I've really struggled and I've not opened up because I didn't want to burden anyone. But actually what I've started to see is it's a real gift. Like when someone shares something with me now, that's like, even if it's really hard to hear and painful, there's a strange kind of exchange where I feel honoured that that person's shared it with me.
Oh, you've hit the nail right on the head there, Joe. I recall an incident at the support group, and I won't mention any names, and we keep confidentiality, where somebody shared deeply. And my response was, what a privilege it is to be your witness here. And everybody just listened and held the space while this person shared, explored, talked around what was going on for him. And in another case, I recall somebody sharing something, again, deeply personal, and somebody else in the group then went on to share something that was directly linked, that had happened to them. And it was quite a powerful moment where this other person said, I've never spoken about that before. But the fact that you talked about it kind of gave this other person permission. And he recalled it anyway because he could connect with that other guy's experience. Yeah, powerful stuff. Powerful stuff.
Sometimes we just need someone to go first. I feel a lot of my work now is giving talks, and I'll think of these, like, I'll spend ages thinking of metaphors and reading research, and just thinking, how do I structure it in a way that lands? And often what I get at the end is we just needed someone to go first. And we just needed someone to speak first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, that doesn't always happen naturally at the support group even. So sometimes, we'll say, okay, we'll open up the space, and there's just this really big silence. And when people are silent, they're not silent in their heads. They're kind of thinking, okay, shall I go? Shall I go? Shall I go? But we kind of hold the silence, and it's lovely in a way. And then somebody musters up the courage. Okay, I'll go. And then that's it. They're off. That's it. They're off. Somebody needs to go first. It kind of gives permission to others. opens a way for them. And even if they don't say anything, and sometimes we have attendees who don't say anything, who absolutely don't say anything. And I kind of sometimes wonder what's going on for them in terms of it's okay just to listen, to know that other people get stuck as well. It's a brilliant space, Joe, and I know you know it's a brilliant space. I love it.
It is a brilliant space, but one thing I find is that there's all these like buzzwords, like community and safe space seem to go out there, and it's like, what does that really mean anymore? But the one bit that I think that you do very well, having been in experienced PeerTalk, and you mentioned before, hold space. The word held makes it safe, but to someone listening that is new to this, that might not have considered this up into a group, what do you mean by holding space?
For me, when somebody is speaking, no matter what they are speaking about, it's being fully present, absolutely fully present. And staying with that person. And I kind of look at the attendees that come to these groups, and they kind of get better themselves, the peers get better at holding the space. I think it comes with practice. How am I fully present to you? And it has to be done in such a way that you feel that somebody's listening to you. I don't think it comes naturally to everybody, for sure. But I think that people who come regularly to the support group kind of drop into this, okay, we're here for each other now. And so over there's talking. So we're going to go over there and be absolutely present and be with that person. It's hard to describe. It's hard to describe that sense of support. I'm listening, I'm here for you. Go on, tell me more. And that's just in your presence, not saying that verbally. Where else do you get that, Joe?
It's sad. I think it's such a basic skill that we don't give to people. And I often find that people are so scared of what happens if someone says, I'm struggling. I've got this stuff going on. And we're so quick to signpost, send people off. It's like, oh, you're struggling, you must go here. And
yeah.
I think we missed that part that you mentioned, that presence, that just witnessing and just being with. You don't need to know the words to say in advance. You don't need a script. You just need to connect with the person. And often I find that I can just communicate from how I feel. And that in itself can be powerful. Just saying to someone, wow, that feels really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some services out there, they're there to signpost. On the various courses that I've done, and helplines and things like that, they will say up front, we're not a listening service. We're only here to signpost. Okay, listening's hard. Listening's hard because you kind of make yourself a little bit vulnerable in the process of listening. You kind of have to open yourself a little bit, don't you? But in the context of a support group, that's what it's all about. We're not there to judge. We're there to listen. We're there to support. We're there to say, I get it. And some people will say in the support group, oh, when that happened to me, such and such a place or such and such an organisation was really, really helpful. And have you tried this? And that does happen. It doesn't happen as often as you think, actually. It's more a case of, okay, that's tough. That's tough. And just being heard, I think, being heard is rare because there's no agenda there. If you're my employee, I've got an agenda, I've got, you've got this to hit. But in the support group, there is no agenda other than, okay, say it how it is. Let's hear it. Let's acknowledge it. Let's respond to it.
Maybe in your friendship group or families, you've got a role to play too.
And maybe you have expectations of what that role is. Yeah, that's a really good point, Joe. Yeah. And also, I think with any skill, kind of talking about how you feel or what's going on for you takes practice. If you're not practiced at doing it, of course it's going to feel hard. It's going to not feel natural. It's going to feel awkward. Of course it is. And I wonder if when you're speaking to loved ones, I mean, I'm a mother. If when my children were little and they fell over, you just want to make it better, don't you? Just want to fix it. You just want the problem to go away. I've learned a lot since then to kind of acknowledge where that person is in that moment and to meet them where they are and not where you want them to be. And I wonder if there's something of that when you're talking to friends and family. It's hard to meet somebody where they are rather than pull them into the space where you want them to be. Of course you want them to be better. So please, stop crying. Stop feeling sad. Come on, cheer up. Oh. Yeah.
I spoke with a clinical psychologist, Anders Sorensen, a few weeks ago, and he said something, and I was like, how have I never seen that before? And he spoke about the word emotion. He was like, it's something that needs to move. It has the word motion in it. And when you were speaking, then that just kind of came to mind because I was like, well, yeah, it is like people don't want you to be in pain. So they try and stop you from feeling it when what that emotion needs to do is move. It needs time. It needs space. I really overly simplified that. It's not that simple, but I thought it was a really good way of framing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So sometimes somebody might get tearful in the support group. Maybe it's the only time that they've expressed that sadness and the tears might roll. It doesn't happen every time, but occasionally it does. And that I feel is okay. It's not easy, but it's okay. This person needs to shed tears. And we do have a box of tissues there, but I'm the last person who will pass you a tissue. I'm the last person who will say, don't cry, cry. Yeah. That experience is worthy of those beautiful tears. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, how if someone feels safe enough to cry around you in our society that's spent so long pushing emotions down, it should be seen as a privilege and an honour. That
it should, Joe, but that's not how we've been conditioned, is it? I remember being at one peer support group meeting and somebody was tearful and somebody from the opposite end of we sit in a circle, somebody from the opposite end of the circle kind of got up, went across with the tissues and went, oh, don't cry. And in my head as a facilitator, I'm screaming in my head because that's what they need to do. And I wonder if it says more about them than it does about the person crying. Is it about me being uncomfortable with you being in tears? Is it my discomfort that I'm addressing? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than sitting with the person who is hurting and letting that hurt show. Let me sit with you. And that's what we aim for in the peer support group, a PeerTalk. Let me sit with you in this difficult moment. I don't know what the answer is, but we're here to listen. We're here to just sit with you and be with you.
touched on something that came to mind of a
Mm-hmm.
preconception I had before going to a group, was that it is just going to be loads of people sat around crying, sharing the sad things. Is that the case, or how does it normally play
No,
out?
no, it really is not the case. I mean, I'm thinking of a support group I was at 2 weeks ago, and we hear kind of, you get to know people and what's going on in their lives. And this person had recently passed an exam at college. The room bursts into applause and
Ah,
cheers, and we were absolutely jubilant for this attendee. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's just the substance, the fabric of this is where I am right now. There are one or two people who will openly say at the support group, I'm in an okay place at the moment. I'm okay, but I still come because I think I feel I might be able to offer a word of encouragement, a word of support to somebody else. And that in itself makes me feel good. So it's not necessarily simply for people who are going through difficult times. Everybody goes through difficult. It's called life, isn't it? The stuff that life throws at you, and people bring current stuff or stuff from their past that they are trying to make sense of, I guess. So it's both. Both. It truly is both. Yeah, we have light moments. There's lots of laughter, and we have very focused, still moments. Yeah, yeah.
it's not just sad all the time, which I've definitely experienced. And what you shared there about sharing itself was something that came out in the research of our group. One thing that people really cited as helping them was being able to help others, to bring
Yeah,
their insight, to be able to share, as you said, not try to fix, but share what's helped them. And
yeah,
for other people to take that on board and feel like, oh, yeah, that's interesting. I'll give that a try. Or,
yeah. Absolutely that, Joe. We had a new guy come a couple of weeks ago actually for the first time, and at the end of the session he openly said there is so much collective wisdom in and experience in this room. Thank you. And I thought, wow. Um, for that very reason, because people come with their life experience and can say, just hang on, and this helped me. It, it, it plants seeds of hope. And how about this? Think about it. It might help.
another preconception I had, there were two things and they kind of linked. The first was that I'm not in enough of a state, or I'm not struggling enough to qualify for this. And it kind of touched into the second, which was I was just about keeping my head above water at work. I was in work. I wasn't what you might deem a charity case, for want of a better word. Like, who are groups for?
Yeah. On the poster at PeerTalk, it says for people experiencing depression, anxiety. And what we do at the start of each meeting, we kind of read an opening script, a kind of introduction. Um, I sometimes drop, this is a group for people experiencing depression, anxiety. And I sometimes say, this is a group for people have facing difficult times, going through tough times, who may be going through tough times or who may have gone through tough times. Who does that exclude, Joe? You know, we all go through challenges because that's what life throws at us. So that we have people who do come with a diagnosis. That's okay. We have people who don't have a diagnosis of sorts, who might be struggling with stress at work, who might be facing loss of some sort, of bereavement, breakdown of a relationship, who might be facing difficult family dynamics. And this is this kind of thing that at some point in our life, suffering is part of life, and it's not easy. It isn't easy. So people bring their life stuff to PeerTalk, to the support group. That makes sense.
Makes loads of sense. It kind of sounds a bit like therapy, where people go to therapy for very similar reasons. And one thing that I was thinking about is that I think approximately 600,000 people received cognitive behavioural therapy on the NHS last year, and roughly 8.9 million people were prescribed an antidepressant last year. I was wondering where PeerTalk and other support groups fit in a world where it's often deemed as antidepressants or CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yeah, and we get people come to the support group who are having difficulty accessing services or accessing help that they think is going to be helpful to them. So the waiting lists are horrendous. So what do they do in the meantime? Or we have people who have been discharged from services, and then like, okay, where do I get my support from now? The support group is free. There's no waiting list, and it's a start. It's a start to a process. It's a start to a journey. And it keeps people going. And it gives people... I've heard so many attendees say they look forward to coming to PeerTalk because they know that if they've had a rubbish week, they can unravel it or just kind of offload it in that space. And there are people who will say, I'm doing counselling and it's good, but equally, in equal measure, there are people who will say, I'm doing counselling and it's rubbish, it's not working for me, can't stand my counsellor. So we get both. We absolutely get both. But then somebody else will pipe up, well, hang on in there, find the right counsellor, because I worked through 2 or 3 before I found the right one, and it was really good and it was really worthwhile. So you do get all sorts of experiences that are right, that are true, rather than that are right, that are true to the people who were there. And that in itself is helpful to know, oh, it wasn't just me, I failed at CBT. Maybe CBT wasn't what was needed at that time.
I can't remember the study to cite, but I've seen it cited in quite a few books, and they looked at what makes therapy, or they looked at the facts outside the therapy room that lead to people healing. And I think it was like the therapeutic alliance was the most important. And it was like, do you like your therapist and do you believe it's going to work, basically? And
absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I asked that question is in our society, we've been quite fixed on these 2 things, on CBT or antidepressants. And if I meet a lot of people that both of those things haven't worked for, and then they feel completely lost, they feel completely hopeless, when actually I like how you framed it again, where it's a process. PeerTalk is a stop at the process, and it's a tool in the toolkit. And there's all these different tools to go at. It's not just those 2 things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. PeerTalk isn't therapy. This support group is not therapy. Let's make that clear. But it can be very therapeutic. Yeah. For sure. When I sit there and listen to people tell their story and they hear themselves saying it as it is, it's very therapeutic. It can be. And it can be therapeutic just to have the room explode into applause, affirming that you worked bloody hard. Oh, pardon my French. You worked really, really hard to get that exam. That in itself is like, yeah, I did a good job there. Do you know? So it's not therapy, but it is therapeutic for sure. Yeah, to be heard, to be listened to.
I think as well that we often have either ors. I think it's quite a Western thing. I think I've got a friend who's really into studying Eastern cultures, and they have like a very both and. It's not so black and white, it's one or the other. And over here I think we have that, and I think it impacts the mental health support we go for. Like people will do one type of therapy and they'll often be like, well, this is the type of therapy, it's not that one, and it's like antidepressants and not this. Whereas actually, like especially with the therapeutic approaches, there's different strengths to each of them. And we touched on this earlier about validation. From my personal experience, the validation I get in the group is so helpful. And for me, it exceeds the validation I get in therapy, because it's a bit of a weird dynamic where it's like, I know this person's being authentic, I know they care, but I am paying them for this space. Whereas when you've got a room full of strangers who have no skin in the game, and they react to something that you said, again, they've held space for you, be it a happy thing like clapping because you passed your college course, or a sad thing, like when you get that reaction from strangers that have no skin in the game, it's quite confronting to that sense of like, does this person really care? Because they clearly do, because they don't have to.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the strengths of the support group, that it's not clinical. It's not a clinical environment. There's no professional expert there, no clinician there. And people are there as their genuine selves rather than in a role. Having said that, I can see in the group how nurturing people can be and how kind people can be. And there's almost a semi-expectation that I know so-and-so is going to respond to this because their experience, and they can relate, they can even almost explain what's going on here. And they do that genuinely. And then sometimes I wonder, because it comes from a place of experience and that's authentic, whether that has as much, if not more, value than a professional, a clinician. I don't know. That's an open question. I don't know the answer to that one. I just know that when it is offered, when the support is offered, it's valued. I can see that. I can see that.
I often wonder with research and claims, and it's really hard to say like X amount of people feel better. But I think you've had studies done into PeerTalk. What kind of outcomes did it pick up on?
Yeah, we've had a couple of evaluations from university departments undertaken across all of the groups, I think. I think very simplistically, you've said it already, Joe. People feel better for coming. Occasionally you hear it there and then where people say, I feel so much better now that I've shared that. And it's a starting point. You know, there might be somebody in the group that says, you know, you might find therapy helpful. I don't know, it might be something you consider. So it's a step in the journey that can be helpful to that person. So very simplistically, in answer to your question, the majority of people feel better for coming. It's the connection, it's the understanding, it's the not feeling alone.
Outside of the things we've discussed, the validation, the feeling understood, the having a space to share where you don't feel like a burden, are there any other things that are at play that help people to feel better and ultimately heal?
Outside of the group?
They're in the group, the kind of the things that contribute to the group that might lead a person to go away and feel better.
The fact that sometimes people are at different stages in a similar journey. For example, loss. A massive topic, massive experience that comes up. And I've seen this a few times where somebody's kind of at the start of that journey, just figuring out what's going on, and somebody is 30 years down the line, having gone through that experience. And the fact that that person who's 30 years down the line, who's had that experience, can say, it'll be okay, can be very comforting to hear. And that's just such a powerful thing to hear. That shared experience, but at different stages in your process, in your journey. Again, it's saying, hang on, it'll get better. It will get better. That's very powerful.
I think it is. I think it's something that we've lost. Like when I'm no evolutionary biologist or psychologist, but like from what the basics that you read is that we used to be closer. We used to have tribes and communities and elders, and there were people to go to talk about this stuff, but we don't really have that anymore.
No, I so agree with you there. It's funny there that you're saying the elder. That's a really interesting one in our peer support groups, because we have a little cluster of elders in our support group. Well, I'm talking about the two specific ones in the area where I live. To the point that there's one attendee, a young person, who will turn up at the support group, and we know she comes when she's in trouble, she's got a problem, and she needs an elder to speak to, and she seeks that support from the elders. And that's, you're right, that's who are the elders in our society now? Where are they? And do we listen to them? Certainly the support groups that I go to and facilitate, there are elders, and they have my utter respect, not only in terms of their knowledge, but their experience and their wisdom, which they offer gently but freely. What a gift.
Yeah, I think that's a real gift.
What a gift. Yeah.
I'm guessing you've worked with hundreds of people. So hundreds of people have been in groups or your counselling room that you've worked with. What are the things that you've seen that have either helped a person to grow from the experience and heal, and also what are the things that might keep a person stuck?
What are the things that help a person to grow from an experience is one of the things, and it's a big thing, is a sense of acceptance of this is how it is right now. And a sense of, I accept you in your messiness right now, and that's okay. So there's something about standing alongside somebody. It's about this thing about meeting somebody where they are, and that person feeling, oh, I am accepted as I am. Maybe I can accept myself as I am. And that frees me up to see the stuff of my life, perhaps with a little bit more clarity. People very often have their own answers. They really do. They just don't hear them. And the beautiful thing about being in the support group, and certainly the facilitators will do that, and to a certain degree the attendees will simply say, oh, I've just heard you say this, this and this. Wow. And that's it. Because when you hear what you have just said, you kind of hear it with a new perspective. A lot of thoughts and feelings we keep inward So we don't actually hear, we don't have the time and the space to hear what's going on.
Yeah.
I think feeling safe is massive as well. Can I trust this space? Can I trust this person? And you can see with the long-term attendees that come to the peer support group, the depths that they go to, you wouldn't go to those depths if you didn't feel emotionally safe. So that's a privilege, to be able to hold that depth. Do you know, people get there themselves. It's having the right conditions, isn't it? And that takes courage. So I love etymology, Joe, which is the meaning of words and breaking words down. And courage is a lovely one, because the word comes from cœur, French, French for heart, cœur. So to have courage means to draw strength from your heart. It's not to be big and macho and brave. It's to draw strength, to listen to your heart and to draw strength from that. So to offer people a space where they can be courageous is it's stunning. It can be truly stunning. Yeah.
So courage and acceptance are really important to help people,
I think so.
heal and grow. What are the things that you might see that might contribute to people struggling or staying stuck where they are?
Gosh, this is a difficult one for me to answer, because I see people in the support group who have only heard one particular narrative about mental health. And people are literally stuck and trapped in a systemic approach that has failed, that isn't helpful. And it's this only hearing this one narrative that's really hard. Because there are so many possibilities. There are so many possibilities, so many different ways of addressing that suffering of suffering is normal. It's not easy. It's horrible. It's rubbish, but it's normal. It's hard, but you can get through it. But we see both at the support group. We see people who are stuck in this narrative. You are ill because you're suffering. And we see, this has happened to me. It's tough and it's hard, but I'm trying to make sense of it. I find that very difficult to witness, because as facilitators, we're not there to comment but I see it. I see it where people are not offered more, where people are not given hope. People get stuck and become helpless and hopeless. And that's where the danger bells start to ring, the red alerts start to happen. Yeah.
I've seen that in groups where it's the story that people are told. It sometimes seems to be the thing that prevents them from really tapping into that stuff that you were talking about, that you need the real courage and the acceptance, where you might hear someone talk and it sounds like they'll often list some really difficult things that go on in their life, and you'll expect them to touch on how that feels next, but really they go, oh, but it's my chemical imbalance, it's my depression. It kind of keeps, from what I've seen, stuck in this loop of, rather than, as you say, digging into the meaning of the suffering and feeling those emotions and letting them flow. It sometimes seems like that narrative of, there's something wrong with you, you are sick, you need to go and see your doctor, from what I've seen, can prevent people from healing. And I don't blame them, because why would you look at that painful stuff if it's as simple as your doctor said? If it is just, oh, you serotonin, or you've just got this disorder, why would you look into the painful stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. And it is down to alternative narratives. It's down to considering other possibilities, isn't it? It's down to highlighting the small positives and holding on to those and building on those. And I think that's something that can happen really well in the support group. That acknowledgement of, well, hang on, that happened because that happened. That's completely normal. Why would it be any different? Yeah, it's not easy. It's rubbish, in fact. But we get both. We get both. But that's the beauty of the support group. That if that's somebody's experience, that's somebody's experience. But they will listen to another experience and think, oh, okay, that happens too, does it? So it does broaden, widen perspectives. For me, I can find that really challenging and frustrating, and I have to bite my tongue because that's not my role. But generally, we can say, so we can open it up and have a really good discussion, the attendees within the group. So it is possible to hold two opposing views in the group and to hold them, and for people to make their own minds up.
I like the concept of lenses. There are, like, mental health is a term I don't really think makes much sense, but it's all we've got, so I use it. But there are different lenses to look through, and you can't just look through one. Like, I think if you look just through one, you'll get stuck. So, for example, take psychology. If you just look at the psychology and you just replay the psychological theory, it's so easy to not look at the biology or not look at your body when you feel our feelings in our body. But then if you just look at the biology, then you'll neglect the psychology. But there might be philosophy. There are all these different lenses, like for some people it might be spirituality. There are different lenses we need to use to look at our experience. And I think it's not just about having one. And I think that's something that I've experienced in groups is you'll come with your one lens, but you'll have, perhaps if people offer it and if it's what you want, you might hear different lenses of how you can look at that experience.
That absolutely happens. That is so true, Joe. That is so, so true, that somebody will talk about the Buddhist centre in town and how much it's helped them, and other people will look at them like they're crazy and think, oh, really? But it introduces another lens, like exactly that. So, and that is the strength of the support group, that people's different experiences might speak or widen that perspective, which offers hope, doesn't it? If people are stuck, oh, who'd have thought it? The Buddhist centre. Okay, let's have a look at it.
Yeah, it's so powerful, and Buddhism comes up a lot. And I'm not a Buddhist, but I've spoken to so many people. It's almost like a bit. I think the philosophy is really important to some people, and it's this whole other philosophy and way of looking at things that people look at and think, well, oh wow, like this is such an available way to look at my situation in a completely different way, and it just seems profound and understandable.
Yeah, and then they bring it to the support group and say, this is what I heard, and we'll kind of, oh really? Tell us more about it. So that is lovely. That is lovely to be able to bring that experience to the group and say, yeah, what do you think? Yeah. And that's very exciting about the support group. And equally, there'll be people whose experiences are very knowledgeable. So we'll have the attendee who will explain what's going on in your brain at the time when you're distressed. So it kind of makes sense that when you are tearful and crying, or when a child is tearful and crying, and you say to them, why are you crying? And the child or the person will go, I don't know, because that part of your brain switches off when you're in distress. And you think, oh, really? That's so interesting. That kind of makes me feel better that I can't answer that question straight away. So it's so rich. It's so rich in terms of what it can offer.
So PeerTalk's a support group. I'm just thinking of people that might have listened to this and thought, "Do you know what, I'm going to give that a try," which would be great. And there's a cracking website called the Hub of Hope where people can go to, put the postcode in, and it will likely reveal many different options depending on where you live. But it's the UK's biggest database of mental health support. People are probably going to see loads of options. What other types of mental health related groups are there that you're aware of?
Okay, well, we're on the Hub of Hope,
Brilliant.
which is lovely. I think support groups are plentiful in the area, and my advice would be try a few, try one, try a few, and you will find one that resonates for you. They all feel slightly different. Some are male only, some are female only, some are mixed. I mean, that we've had people come to us who prefer not to go to the male only ones, but others who wouldn't consider coming to a mixed one. So there are plenty of different sorts of support groups around, and I think you have to kind of dip your toe in them before you find one that kind of works for you. And what we often say at the support group is give it a few goes. You know, don't kind of decide on the very first one. Come a few times before you think, nah, this really isn't for me. But we have people at our support group who will say, walking football's great, and it happens here, and on this night, I love it. And we'll have people who will say, there's a group that does walks, organized walks, that just being out in nature just makes me feel better. So we're talking about activities where people connect, not necessarily with a mental health angle, but more of a social, let's find something that we're interested in and let's give it a go. Yes, aside from the formal support groups, there are art groups. There's a guy who comes to our peer support group who goes to an art group. Wow, that's kind of so therapeutic for that person. And he's, you know, it's good, it's creative, it's doing, it's making. So the peer support group in itself offers other pointers.
How is it different from group therapy?
I think group therapy is, if I'm right, needs somebody to direct it, somebody who knows what they're doing, who knows how to rest and pause at a point. This support group, PeerTalk support groups, are peer support groups. So it's peer-to-peer support. It is facilitated. These groups are facilitated. PeerTalk groups are facilitated, but facilitators don't join in. They hold the space, they keep the space safe. So it's therapeutic in that it feels safe enough to share. Sometimes I will sit in a peer support group and I think, oh, I'd love to work with this person individually, you know, in the therapy room, because we could go further. But that's says a lot more about me than that person. So it is different in that it's not directed or guided. It is loosely guided by the facilitators, really very, very loosely, but it is peer-to-peer support.
I think it touches on what we were saying earlier about different lenses. I think the types of, like, I talk about tools all the time, like mental health tools, like a peer support group could be one tool in your toolkit. And I have this little framework in my mind that's not black and white, like these tools fit into all sorts of different, this is how I frame it, where I've got like my understanding tools. These are the tools that I'll use to try and get a bit of context, to get the rational understanding as to what might be going on. And for quite a long time, I kind of thought that was it, but got stuck because I realised I'd neglected feeling tools. I'd neglected tools that helped me connect with my body, that helped me connect with emotion. And again, emotion, like the tools that help this stuff to be present and pass. The tools that I call foundation tools, which are like how I look after my body, sleep, exercise, nutrition, because they're the foundation that give us the support to do the other stuff. And the final type of tool in my toolkit is connection tools. So these tools that I need to connect with others around me. And I like how you're encouraging people just to try stuff. And I like to offer the lens approach again, where if you go to a tool, if you use a walking football, you might get a few of those things. The walking football might fit into a few of those, but you might not get as much understanding. And vice versa, if you're really struggling, if you've just gone through a loss and it's really painful and real, a running group might help on one capacity, but it might not solve all your problems. So I love the fact that you're encouraging people to try many different things, because I just think that there's so much we can do, but the society we live in, the structure, the very fact it is that people are told they're often broken, they're often given an antidepressant or even cognitive behavioral therapy, which helps some people, but a lot of people kind of come away and be like, oh, is the problem me and my thoughts? You've just opened up to all these different perspectives.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you're going to try a new group, in your opinion, what makes a good group and what makes a good facilitator?
A welcoming group. I kind of, it takes time for a group to become established. Certainly the groups here in Preston have been going for, I don't know, coming up to 10 years now.
Wow.
And there has been a turnover of attendees. But there's a tangible sense of trust in the room. So what makes a good group? A kind of welcome, an acceptance, and no pressure to talk, but a sense of being real. And some kind of follow-up in terms of, for the facilitators. I mean, we've had people who have been so worried about coming that we've agreed to meet them at the door and walk them in. It's the tiny little things that might help. The cup of tea and coffee after the meeting, that is so important. It's not a meeting anymore. We're not talking about the deep stuff. We're just talking about the weather, where we're going on holiday, the football, and those little touches, those little personal touches of connection really, really matter. I think it's down to authentic connection. Yeah.
I think the best evidence that I found is simply how I feel. And it's the rational part of us wants some real clear, understandable thing as to what makes one group work and what makes another group not work. But I've tried loads of different groups, and sometimes it's really profound. I'll be 5 minutes in and I'll have this feeling of like, I don't want to be here. And a lot of that comes down to the facilitator. I've not had this at PeerTalk, but I've tried other groups that I've the rational part of my mind's like, this is a good group for you. But when I'm in it, like the feelings just no. And I think that is the evidence, isn't it? How you feel in the group, after the group, around the people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, Joe. And you don't know that until you've actually stepped into the group and participated in the group, which is why I would say try a few. Try and find one that works for you. Because when you do, it's like gold. When you do, it's like gold. And it's that first step, it's that part of your journey that can be so helpful. Yeah.
At the start of the podcast, we spoke about how there are very few spaces where you get what you get at PeerTalk, where you get the space just to be yourself. if someone's listening to this and they might manage a team or lead a team at work, or they might be involved in some sort of organisation and they might have liked what we've said, are there any insights that you've gained from all your experience facilitating groups that might be transferable just to the real world and other groups of people that haven't come together in a support group setting?
It's all about listening for me, Joe. It's about active, genuine, authentic listening. And there aren't many spaces where you get that, because if you are in a workplace, some things are very uncomfortable to hear because then you have to respond and do something about that. And there's an agenda. That's the thing. But even within that agenda, if you can show that you have heard that person and acknowledge and recognize what they are communicating, then that's at least a start. Transferable skills, it's listening. It's listening. It's recognizing, it's acknowledging, it's validating, it's listening. And accepting. That's hard.
They're all things that sound simple that are really hard. The listening one makes me laugh because when I first started in sales, I used to cut in all the time. I used to cut in, and I couldn't understand why it was in sales, that's such a bad habit, because you want the client to be speaking. You don't want to be cutting them off every time. I'm guessing it's the same as a counsellor. And we had this joke in our family about how my uncle got married and they gifted his wife a trumpet because she'd have to blow this trumpet to get a word in our family. And I was like, well, go figure. And I developed this really simple technique that it was actually a sales director taught me. And it was to do this. He puts one hand on the other like this, and he squeezes his arm slightly when he wants to talk, but the other person's talking. And I do it all the time now. It's such a basic thing, but I'm just like squeezing my hand. It's like, there's part of me that wants to jump in and say something, but I also know this person needs to speak and just to step back, so I squeeze my hand.
Well, that's to do with your developing self-awareness, which is absolutely brilliant. But as a salesperson, Joe, you had an agenda. You had to sell.
Yeah.
And you had a message to give, and you did what you needed to do to get that message across. You've kind of, I mean, the very fact that that's changed just shows masses of development and self-awareness, which continues, doesn't it? That never stops, does it? We just go deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah.
I think self-awareness is really important. Again, it touches into that, what I frame as understanding tools and feeling tools. I think if you have all the understanding tools without self-awareness, it can be quite a dangerous combination. I think we have to be aware of ourselves and things that are coming up and what we bring to situations too.
And I think I often see that play out in the support group, where somebody is speaking and somebody else will respond, and that person suddenly becomes aware, more self-aware of, oh, really? So it's part of the process of that reflection that we don't all have. It's something that we have to work on. But I do see it happening. And it's a privilege to see. Wow. Yeah. It's growth, isn't it? People grow.
With all your wisdom and experience, if I was to put you in charge of the NHS and write you a blank check, what would you do?
For me, the fact that distress is seen as an illness is so wrong. I would reframe. And I wonder if this is kind of happening to a certain degree. The current system in terms of mental health is failing. If it wasn't failing, why aren't people feeling better? When did suffering become an illness? Why are we framing it as somebody being in deficit? There's a whole mindset that could just be turned around? That's too big a question, Joe, but I wonder if people are stuck in this illness model and don't see a way out and are disempowered and don't see a way out of it because that's all that's on offer. And yet you and I know, and many people out there know, there are lots of possibilities. There's some research, and I can't cite it particularly, where the detail of it rather, where people who have this thing called depression, eventually it changes and it goes eventually because things change, evolve, and it heals and goes. But those who have been put on medications, it doesn't. It doesn't eventually heal and go. And that makes me so sad that we've medicalized human emotions and human distress and human suffering. It breaks my heart. And it breaks my heart when I see it at the support group. So it is a kind of paradox in a way, because we do see that at the support group. We do see people who are trapped in this way of thinking, but equally we see people who offer hope and other ways forward. So it's a real balancing act, realistically.
It's interesting because a lot of people would say it needs more money, but I like what you said, how it just needs a new approach and one that's fostered in hope and a more positive outlook. And I think you're certainly doing that with PeerTalk.
I hope so. Well, I know so. I see it. Yeah.
How can people find out more about PeerTalk?
Okay, website, Google it, peertalk.org.uk, I think. We've got a website and a page on that website with all the support groups that are listed. Or Hub of Hope. Hub of Hope you mentioned before is brilliant. Love Hub of Hope. We're on there.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Rosa. This has been a very enlightening chat.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you've stayed until the end, so you're basically part of our community now, and I need your help. I've covered all the costs of season 1 myself, and I am running on fumes now. I'm trying to raise £1,200 to cover the cost of season 2. If you can afford to donate, then please do, because every penny will go towards the cost of creating episodes that help people who are feeling lost and alone. If you'd like to make a donation, go to my Ko-fi page, which you can find in the show notes. Also down in the show notes, you'll see a link to reconnect.club if you'd like to join the Reconnect waiting list. And if you'd like me to come and speak at your organisation, it's joetudor.com. Thank you for your help in growing the Reconnect community. Until next time, see ya.